Welcome to Recovery Channel New York. I'm your host, Luke, and today we have Conrad joining us to talk about staying sober during the holidays. Welcome, Conrad.
Thank you so much, Luke. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into the topic of, just the holiday season and how to navigate, staying sober during challenging times, whether it's parties, family, stressful situations, but just to get started, any background information, anything you want to share. Just who is Conrad?
I've dabbled with sobriety for a while now. I'm 23 years old. I first tried getting sober at 21. I had, a stretch of sobriety there, 60 days. I went back. And then since then, it's sort of been like on and off sobriety. And at the moment, thank God, I have like 100 odd days of no alcohol. I work AA. It feels great. I graduated from my university in May, and now I manage a nightclub in New York City. So I'm often surrounded by booze and partying, but it's fun. I like it.
That's pretty amazing to be in the proximity of alcohol like that just all the time. You're just it's always in front of you, and not just the alcohol, but the drunk people that you probably have to deal with on a regular basis. I know that when I'm at certain parties and I get a lot of really annoying, talkative people that they just want to go on, and I'm sober, and it could be a lot. What's that like? Always just having those people around.
You know, it's interesting. I would be lying if I said that it wasn't extremely frustrating at times. Of course, sometimes it's impossible to deal with, but um, it actually truly would be impossible to deal with if I was drinking myself. So when I'm dealing with drunk folks, it becomes very clear to me that staying sober in my line of work, which I love, is completely necessary. If I was drinking, I wouldn't be able to manage people, and that's what I do for a living. So I need to be sober. Um, Also, sometimes, yeah, you see drunk people, and maybe I get a little jealous or frustrated, and I want to drink. But another feeling I have frequently is, thank God that's not me. I know that has been me in the past. I'm very happy that I'm sober right now and not drunk.
You know what I love about that the most is that for so many people that would be a trigger, and I even asked about it. How do you handle a trigger like that? And you explain that you take something that could be a trigger, and instead you turn it into inspiration. You say you use it to remind yourself of the version of yourself you want to be, and how the people that you see around you when they're in that state, that's not gonna bring you to your best self. And so I think that's cool. You take something that someone else's mistakes, and you use it to inspire you as like a lesson of what you don't want to do. So that's awesome. With the holidays coming up, it gets very hard, if not impossible, to avoid being in the proximity of alcohol. Whether you got a Christmas party coming up, and you know it's not a sober person. There's a lot of sober parties that people could go to as well, so that's always awesome. I have sober friends who do parties without alcohol present, but for a lot of people who don't have a full sober network yet, if there's a Christmas party, there's going to be alcohol there, and at New Year's parties, there's almost always alcohol there. So it's your options become very limited. It's like, do I want to stay home and skip a party that I know all my friends are going to be at, because I know there's going to be alcohol there. So, I don't want to be triggered, so I'm not going to go to a place where there's alcohol. So instead, my other option is stay home alone and know that all my friends are enjoying themselves and hanging out with each other. Either way, it kind of feels like either one could be just as triggering and, lead to a drink. So, I was just hoping that you could share some of the tips and secrets on how you can be in the proximity of alcohol in a party environment like that, and not feel the temptation, or if you do feel the temptation, how you work through that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to preface this with everyone is different, and so everyone's relationship to alcohol and sobriety and drugs are different as well. I naturally love to be around people. I like to party, sober, and a lot of the time prior not. But no matter what, I like to party. People often have told me like, "Oh, I could never do what you do without drinking. Like I could never party the way you do without drinking." So for me, I really like to party. So I embrace my sobriety when I'm at a party. Like I don't know. I listen, man. Like I dance, I talk to people, I have a good time. I drink water a lot. I drink club soda. I throw in a Red Bull here and there if I'm tired. Um, but yeah, I really I've had so what feels like so much drinking experience that like it's just gotten kind of old for me, like the the program of just blacking out and waking up and feeling terrible. Like I know I don't have to do that now, so it's a blessing not to do it. Um, but listen, like the temptations come up. So we're talking about the holidays. I think the last time I was really like schwitzing for a drink was Thanksgiving Eve. We had a at the club I work at. There was a huge like Thanksgiving Eve is like a big. I'm sure you know like a big drinking holiday. People like I've heard it called Blackout Wednesday.
I've never heard that before.
I've heard like Big Wednesday,
That's
Blackout
funny.
Wednesday, and so yeah, it was just like it was a booze fest. Like people were getting after it. Um, and I think one thing I heard actually we might have talked about it ourselves, but it was like for me working AA and like having a sober community and like doing my own rituals at home, like that's the conditioning for the game. And like the game is work, the game is being at parties. So like that's like my fitness training to be ready for the game. So like when it gets hard, like I feel like I'm prepared. Like I have the tools around me. I'm able to think through like play the tape forward, if you will. Like what would happen that night if I were to drink? I don't know. I'd go home, I'd be hammered, I'd wake up the next morning hungover. My family would know, everyone would be disappointed. I would be the most disappointed in myself, and it would suck. So so one thing I really try to do is just if I feel myself, can I curse?
Sure.
If I feel myself getting like a case of like the fuck it's, I step back and I'm like, all right, well like you could drink, like you do have you do have that ability. Like no one's truly stopping you from taking this shot, but just consider what will happen. And almost every time I actually consider what will happen, it's not good. So uh, that's what works for me. That's what works for me.
Yeah, I remember that conversation that you're talking about actually, where we spoke about that training, and I remember like it's just it's such a good reminder to me that like I have to make the right decisions when it doesn't count and when nobody's watching. Same way that like you talk about like athletic conditioning, training, practice, whatever it is, like when you practice and you get used to the form and you get used to the motion and you do something enough times in practice, then when it's game time you could just rely on those skills to take over, and it's not like when something is second nature and you just get to rely on like muscle memory rather than having to fight something or learn something on the spot or remind yourself of something, when you can just let your instincts kick in, and you've shaped your instincts to, suit the whatever the challenge is that you're trying to overcome. You could just rely on what you've been practicing. And so like that's why it's just so important day in and day out to try and make those right decisions when it's not hard. When it's easy, do the right thing. And that doesn't even necessarily mean like, drinking versus not drinking. That's very black and white. But just like, when I'm doing things that are like self-care and more along the lines of like just being a good person, when I show up and I'm honest, right? Like for example, being honest, right? Like if I find myself habitually lying, then like it's going to be really easy for me to lie to somebody about a relapse or something. But when I hold myself to a certain standard of honesty, even when it's not a big secret or it doesn't count, but I tell myself I'm going to always be honest, then I'm being honest all the time when it comes to like a really important situation where I have the opportunity to lie. It's like, no, I've been working on this thing, I've been conditioning myself, I've been practicing, and I know that this is how I be the best version of myself. This is how I act. I'm going to be honest. So it's like we just have to day in and day out do these things the right way so that when the big tests come, when game day arrives, we've practiced enough before game day that like it just we're ready. We've prepared and it's game time. So back to the whole nightlife aspect of it all, and back to the surviving the holidays. You know, something that I find very interesting about drinking as a whole is how we've kind of been taught and almost even programmed to feel like drinking is how you celebrate. Drinking equals like celebration. And I feel like even in working in nightlife, you must hear every other song talk about like this is the best night because we're drinking. It's just like that's what you hear. It's like party and drink and celebrate and drink and have fun and drink. It's like they program it, they wire it into your brain to think that these two things, like you need one to have the other. And I feel like that's part of just what sets this mindset. Like I went into sobriety thinking I'd never have fun again. Turns out I was already miserable. I was depressed.
Right.
I was a depressed person saying like, but if I give up alcohol, I'm never gonna have fun again. It's like I wasn't having fun anyways.
Yeah.
But I just kept being told that alcohol is how you celebrate. So I had this association in my mind. What are your thoughts on that?
I once told somebody that I don't drink, and they were like, "You're not gonna drink champagne at your wedding?" I don't know. It was like, I don't know. Like I haven't thought that far ahead, and it was just like, wow. Like that's such it's true. Like it's so deeply ingrained in our society that drinking is paired with celebration. And so listen, that's just what it is. Like raising a glass is just a part, like it is just the ritual, like in the United States at least. I mean, I think across the world, but for me, like taking a shot like for a celebrate, like that's just what it is. So for me, and a lot of people might disagree with this, but like sometimes I'm like, listen, I want to participate, so I'll do like a water shot. Um or like I'll raise my glass of whatever else I have because like I'm not gonna change that like people are celebrating with drinks, and like I said, I like to party, I like to celebrate life, so I get involved by taking my water shot, or that works for me. But yeah, I mean, it is it's a really, it's an incredible thing how like you've mentioned, how just drinking um is paired with celebration, like across everything. Like there's nowhere where that's, except like maybe if you're celebrating your sobriety. But even like even people outside of AA who are like, oh, I'm gonna do dry January. It's like February 1st rolls around and they're like, cheers to that.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah.
But that's so funny that you talk about like celebrating with everybody, but drinking water in a shot glass. But it really just shows how much of this is conditioning, how much of this is taught, how much of this is implanted in us and learned behavior. Not this isn't like naturally like what we discover. If it was like from the beginning we never drank alcohol, but we felt like drinking water out of a shot glass. Eventually we'd be like, why are we doing this? But it's like it's these little things that are just implanted in us. It is taught. It is not a natural thing that we've like discovered that that's how we celebrate is drinking out of these tiny little glasses. But it's like, it's part of the culture.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think anyone who goes sober for, I would say, even like as little as 2 weeks, y- you'll be you'll be amazed at truly how involved alcohol is in our society. I mean, I really don't think it's a stretch to say that like s- cities and people and communities are truly slaves to alcohol. I mean, they look forward to the weekend all week. They look forward to their beer all day. Like it's a real thing, and like I'm not judging, like because that's been me, of course. And like you said, I truly think it's something that's out of the ordinary person's control. Like it is so promoted in your face. I think something that's like helps highlight that for a lot of people is like, so obviously weed has become a lot more liberal in the past like 5-10 years. It's becoming legal most places. Here in New York City, obviously it's, I mean, it feels like from 4 years ago to now it was like it was illegal to smoke weed, and now it's like the streets completely reek of
Yeah,
weed. And again, like I'm not complaining, I don't give a shit,
absolutely.
um but like I noticed, so like when weed started becoming legal and like like dispensaries started popping up, it was kind of like a thing. Like you'd be like, oh look, there's a dispensary, or like you'd see a billboard or like an Instagram ad, and you'd be like, oh holy shit, like it's really becoming legal now, or like this is crazy, like this was illegal, da, da, da. But it's like, bro, it's nothing compared to alcohol. Like alcohol is advertised more than water.
Yeah.
It's like there's Nike, Apple, and Anheuser-Busch. Like
Yeah.
it's insane,
Yeah.
bro. It's incredible, and like there's just like I don't know. It kind of fascinates me, like how easily this really poisonous drug, this really like
Yeah.
really poisonous. Like if you put it against all the other drugs, it's like alcohol with like the stuff that people drink is diluted. But if you just had pure alcohol and you compared it to like other drugs in their purest form,
No,
you'd
it's
be like, oh
absolutely
holy
poisonous.
shit, like
Yeah, it's
that's the one I got
absolutely.
to stay away from.
Yeah.
And it's like in
And
the
it's one of the
city at
most
least,
addictive as well.
yeah, of course. And in the city at least, but like everywhere else, it's like every corner, bro. Every corner you can cop alcohol. 7-Eleven, restaurants, liquor stores, obviously. It's all over. Billboards. And like again, like I'm not saying this in like a hating way, like whatever, like it is what it is. It's just truly fascinating to me that we've reached this point.
A lot of breaking the pattern of alcoholism becomes changing your routine. That's one of the things that you have to do. And so, like, for you, if you can take water out of a shot glass, then that's awesome. But some people, like, maybe stay away from certain kind of like learned behaviors and things that we've just been conditioned to do and cues that we've taken and like try to disassociate certain kind of like events from ways of living and certain environments from a way of living. And so you don't necessarily have to like follow a cue that you've been following the whole time, and breaking certain patterns can just come down to like go to a different place. If you have certain associations with a certain place, and that environment that you've been in, the people there, and it just feels like a habit or a pattern, like switch up the places you go to. Maybe even like I've heard people say like You know, if there's a liquor store that you pass a lot, like change your route. You know, if you're gonna go somewhere, like go a different way. Just these little things that can kind of change the routine. And then once you can break out of that routine, like a lot of things become less habitual, and you don't just find yourself with a drink in your hand accidentally because you're making a conscious effort to try to like avoid that. Because when you follow all the same things, you know, I've heard a saying that's like, if you do what you've done, you'll get what you've gotten. So it's like try to change up some of these patterns, and you might get something new.
Yeah, I've always said like nothing changes if nothing changes. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
the same thing
similar
in the
thing, yeah.
yeah.
Um, but like what you're talking about reminds me of a good friend of mine once was telling me that he said he wishes he was like I wish he was like I wish nobody drank because I hate drinking. And I was like, "What?" And
Yeah.
it was just funny, but
I
like
think it's that
but I
way.
like understood like he was just saying like e- like it sounds crazy because he's just saying like, "Oh, I drink because everybody else
Yeah.
does." Um so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I totally understand the struggle of like going places and
Without a
everybody's
doubt.
drinking. I think one thing for me is like I found my people. I have like obviously like you're my homie, you're my brother. Like I could always call you, kick it with you, do shit with you. That's mad fun. But like I'm gonna be going out with people who drink in big drinking environments. It's good to have your people. So like we're talking about the holidays. Thank God for me with my family. My mom's in the program. Um, she has 9 years of sobriety.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's congrats to her. I wouldn't be here without her. But
It's wonderful.
so like if I'm struggling at a party or like and I think this is mutual, like we go to each other, we're able to talk. So and it's the same with friends. Like you know the ones who are like slamming Tito's
Of course.
and doing bumps in the bathroom and the ones who are like chill and thank God I have good friends who all want the best for me. I think if I picked up a drink they'd all slap it out of my hand at once. But
Yeah.
it's important for me to like stick close to the people who I know will be there for me.
That's great. And then just the last thing that I want to say is my last piece of advice, which is like, what is a celebration in nature if you break it down, other than just a way to appreciate something? That's kind of what the definition in nature of a celebration is like an appreciation. So it's like we kind of have to get down to the core of like, why do you need to drink to appreciate something? You know, how can I appreciate this in a different way? And really, what I find is that I can appreciate things so much more and on such a like deeper, more thoughtful, more emotional level when I'm sober. It's like when I actually remember the next day, you know,
Yeah,
or like when I
yeah,
get to be present
yeah.
because I'm actually there and I get to like live in the moment. Like, what's more appreciating something than actually like soaking it in and being there for it? So, you know, I actually kind of the best way that I celebrate something is by showing up for it, being the best version of myself, and actually being present. And that's not something that I'm able to do when I'm under the influence of alcohol. So I celebrate, you know, more properly actually by being sober. And so, yeah.
Agreed. Listen, man, I'm not an expert on sobriety. I'm kind of an expert on drinking. I like being sober better. For me, it's been a better way of life. Anyone can do it. I truly believe that. Everyone should give it a try, but I'm not judging anybody, bro. Do you? I don't have it figured out, but I know that not drinking is better for me.
All right. I love that, man. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, brother. Love you.